The family thought Bruno had finally become a problem. He hadn't. He was the only one reading the room correctly. A 140-pound Saint Bernard pressing his face toward a 9-month-old baby is not a subtle event. It fills a doorway. It fills a room. It fills the chest of every adult watching with something that bypasses logic and goes straight to the throat. That is what Renata Osei saw on the Tuesday morning she would spend the rest of that year thinking about. Bruno had lived in their house for 4 years before Finn arrived. He was the kind of dog people stopped on sidewalks to photograph. Enormous, unhurried, built like a small love seat with opinions. He had never shown anything resembling aggression. He had never growled, never snapped, never once positioned himself between Renata and anything she wanted. He was, by every observable measure, an extraordinarily gentle animal. Then Finn started crying, and Bruno stopped being that dog. It began on a Wednesday. Finn was seated in his bouncy chair near the kitchen doorway, working himself into a proper cry over nothing visible. The kind of crying that 9-month-olds do, because their feelings are enormous, and their vocabulary is zero. Bruno came from the living room, not running, walking, deliberate, the way he moved when he had decided something. He lowered his head, that head, the size of a small suitcase, until his nose was inches from Finn's face. He held it there, inhaling, slow, focused, the nostrils moving. Finn screamed louder. Renata grabbed Bruno's collar with both hands. He didn't resist. He came away cleanly, turned, sat beside her, tear, and watched Finn from across the room with an expression she had never seen on him before. Alert, specific. Like he was tracking something she couldn't see. She filed it as a strange moment. She didn't tell her husband Marcus right away. He had never done this before, not once. But she didn't ask why he started now. That detail would matter. She didn't know that yet. The second time was 3 days later. Finn was on the playmat, having a harder cry, the kind that came from somewhere below frustration. Bruno came from the hallway faster than a walk, crossed the room, pushed his muzzle toward the baby's face before Renata could reach him. Same behavior, that slow, thorough, deliberate inhale. His eyes not on Renata, on Finn. She pulled him back by the collar. He came without resistance. He sat. He watched. Marcus saw the third time. Bruno had been in the back of the house when Finn began to cry. Marcus heard the dog's nails on the hardwood before he heard Bruno appear in the doorway. The dog walked to the baby's bouncy chair, lowered his face, pressed his nose towards the infant's mouth, and held it there for what Marcus later estimated as 10 full seconds. Marcus pulled him away hard. Bruno moved back without sound, without reaction. He simply sat down and stared at the baby with that same fixed, measuring attention. That night, Marcus said what they had both been thinking. Something has changed in him. He's fixating on Finn. Terrian Renata was a labor and delivery nurse. She had 17 years of clinical training. She had attended infant safety briefings. She had read the incident literature. She knew what large breed fixation on a small infant looked like in the documented cases. She knew the size differential alone, 140 pounds to 18, made the calculus straightforward. "I know," she said. "I think we have to separate them." Marcus called his sister. They brought the extra crate up from the basement, large, dog-proof, set up in the mudroom with Bruno's bed and his water bowl. Bruno walked into it without being led. He turned around once, lay down, and pressed his nose to the crate door. He stayed there through dinner, through the evening, through Finn's 9 p.m. feed. He was quiet. 2:31 in the morning, the crate latch hit the mudroom floor. Renata didn't understand the sound immediately. Then she heard Bruno's nails on the hardwood, not the slow, deliberate walk. Something faster, something with direction in it. She was sitting up before she was fully conscious. She heard him stop in the hallway outside Finn's room. She got there 30 seconds later. Bruno was at the door, both paws on the frame, nose pressed through the 3-inch gap she'd left for the monitor cord. Not making noise, just pushing his face through the opening as far as it would go. She opened the door. He went directly to the crib, both paws on the rail, nose over the side, pressed toward Finn's face. Finn was quiet. Wrong quiet. Not sleeping quiet. The other kind. She reached into the crib and knew before she finished the motion. The limpness was too much. The skin cool where it should have been warm. Lips with a color she recognized from the delivery floor. The color that meant move now and explain later. She called 911 with Finn on her chest and Marcus behind her, and Bruno sitting 6 inches from her left foot. Still watching, still there. The paramedic who arrived first was a man named Joel Carver, 9 years in emergency response. He assessed Finn in under 90 seconds and said 2 words to his partner that made them both move differently. At the hospital, Dr. Adez Nwosu, pediatric emergency medicine, told them what had happened. Finn's blood oxygen had dropped to a level consistent with early respiratory compromise. The cause was a partial airway obstruction, an unseen accumulation of mucus from a mild cold they hadn't known was progressing. Quiet, invisible. The kind that doesn't announce itself with dramatic symptoms. The kind that solves itself very badly if no one intervenes. She looked at Renata. Another 20 minutes, and we would be managing something very different tonight. If you stay for stories about what animals sense before we do, you're in the right place. Subscribe so you don't miss the next one. The veterinary behaviorist who reviewed Bruno's behavior afterward was Dr. Priya Venkatesh, Canine Olfactory Research. She explained what had been happening every time Bruno pressed his nose toward Finn's face and inhaled. Respiratory compromise in an infant alters the chemical composition of exhaled breath. CO2 concentration, moisture content, trace volatile compounds produced by the body under oxygen stress. A dog's olfactory system, operating at sensitivity levels hundreds of times beyond human perception, registers those shifts as a signature, as a signal, as something wrong with the breath coming out of that small body. Bruno hadn't been fixating. He had been reading. Every time he pressed his nose toward Finn's mouth, T was taking a measurement that no instrument in that house was capable of producing. Every time they pulled him away, they interrupted a diagnostic process they didn't know was happening. And when the crate door came off its latch in the middle of the night, was because the measurement had crossed a threshold he could not ignore. Has your dog ever done something that made no sense until it was the only thing that made sense? Tell us in the comments. These stories deserve to be heard. They brought Finn home on a Friday. Bruno was in the mudroom, crate door open, lying on his bed. Renata opened the mudroom door and said nothing. Bruno came out, walked to the living room where Marcus had set Finn in his bouncy chair, and lay down on the rug beside it, his chin on the floor, his eyes on the baby. Renata sat on the couch and watched him watch her son. She thought about the crate latch on the mudroom floor. She thought about the 10 seconds she had stood in the hallway before she opened Finn's door. She thought about Dr. Nwasu's 20 minutes. Every guardian deserves to be recognized, even the ones who never asked for anything in return. If stories like this matter to you, subscribe so you never miss the next one. Bruno lay on the rug beside the bouncy chair all evening. When Marcus turned the lights off, Bruno did not move to his usual spot near the couch. He stayed where he was, chin on his paws, facing Finn. Still watching. The next story involves a dog who refused to stop barking at a wall for 6 days, and what was inside it. Renata sat on the floor with her back against the couch and did not move him away.